The massive ship appeared in Earth's sky on a Tuesday morning. It was bigger than any city, casting shadows across entire countries as it moved through the atmosphere. People stopped their cars and looked up. Children pointed from school playgrounds. News reporters struggled to find words. The ship was black and silver, with strange curves and angles that hurt to look at for too long. It made no sound as it floated above New York, then London, then Beijing. Every government on Earth was trying to contact it, sending radio signals and laser beams. For 3 days, the ship remained silent. Then it spoke. The voice came from every screen on Earth, every television, every computer, every phone. It was deep and cold, with an accent that sounded like grinding metal. The being on the screen was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were completely black. "People of the third planet," it said. "I am Ambassador Kethvar of the Zeltharian Galactic Empire. Your world has been selected for integration into our great civilization." The leaders of Earth gathered in an emergency session at the United Nations building. Admiral Sarah Chen sat at the table representing the newly formed Terran Defense Coalition. She was a small woman, with short black hair and calm eyes. She had spent 20 years preparing for this day, though she had hoped it would never come. Kethvar's image appeared in the meeting room. He looked around at the humans with what might have been amusement. "Your species is young and primitive," he said, "but you show promise. Under our guidance, you can become useful members of the Empire." The Secretary General of the United Nations leaned forward. "What exactly are you asking of us?" "I am not asking," Kethvar replied. "I am informing. Your world will provide 40% of all resources to the Empire. Your leaders will be replaced with Imperial governors. Your children will be educated in proper Imperial ways. Your primitive religions and cultures will be corrected." The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Admiral Chen stood up. She walked to the front of the room and looked directly at the alien ambassador. "No," she said simply. Kethvar's black eyes focused on her. "Excuse me?" "You heard me correctly," Chen replied. "The answer is no. You have 72 hours to leave our solar system. This is your only warning." The alien ambassador made a sound that might have been laughter. "You think you can threaten the Zeltharian Empire? We have conquered 847 worlds over 3,000 years. We have ships that can destroy planets. We have weapons you cannot imagine." Chen did not move. 72 hours. "You have primitive rockets and simple nuclear weapons," Kethvar continued. "Your strongest explosives would barely scratch the paint on our ships. Our shields can stop anything your species has ever created." 71 hours and 58 minutes, Chen said, looking at her watch. Kethvar's 4 arms spread wide. "Very well. Let me show you what happens to worlds that refuse the Empire's generous offer." The screen changed to show space above Earth. Hundreds of ships appeared, each one the size of a mountain. They moved into formation around the planet like hungry sharks. 200 battle cruisers, Kethvar explained. Each one carries enough firepower to crack continents. Our plasma cannons can melt your ice caps. Our quantum disruptors can tear apart the bonds that hold your atoms together. The world leaders looked terrified. Some were already talking about surrender, but Admiral Chen remained calm. She had been waiting for this conversation her entire career. "Your ships are impressive," she admitted. "But you made one mistake." "What mistake could primitives like you possibly identify?" Chen smiled for the first time during the meeting. It was not a friendly smile. "You told us you were coming." Kethvar looked confused. "We sent no advance notice." "Not directly," Chen agreed. "But you have been here before. Small ships, scout vessels, they crash sometimes. We found them. We studied them. We learned." The alien ambassador's confidence flickered slightly. "Impossible. Our scouts reported that your species had barely left your home planet." "Your scouts saw what we wanted them to see," Chen replied. "Did they tell you about the 3 mining colonies on our moon? Did they mention the research stations on Mars?" Did they notice the defense platforms we built in the asteroid belt? Defense platforms? Kethvar's voice was less certain now. Chen walked closer to the screen. For 50 years we have been preparing. Every government on Earth has worked together on secret projects. We built weapons. We trained soldiers. We waited. Your weapons are primitive, the ambassador insisted, but his tone had changed. Some of them are, Chen agreed, but not all. We learned interesting things from your crashed scouts. Energy shields, for example. Very effective against plasma and lasers. Completely useless against solid objects moving fast enough. Kethvar was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed again, but it sounded forced. Even if you have advanced weapons, you are one world. We are an empire spanning thousands of systems. You cannot fight the entire galaxy. We do not want to fight the galaxy, Admiral Chen replied. We only want you to leave. 70 hours and 12 minutes. And if we refuse? Chen's expression became cold as winter. Then you will learn why humans are the only species on our planet that hunts for sport. The transmission ended. Around the world, military bases that did not exist on any public map began to wake up. Weapons that had been hidden for decades powered up. Soldiers who had trained in secret their entire lives prepared for battle. In space, the Zeltharian fleet maintained its positions around Earth. Kethvar contacted his fleet commanders. Begin scanning operations, he ordered. Find these supposed defense platforms. But the scans found nothing unusual. A few communication satellites, some space debris, nothing that looked like a threat to the mighty Imperial fleet. Kethvar relaxed. The human was bluffing. They always did at first. In 3 days, when the deadline passed, he would demonstrate the Empire's power by destroying one of their major cities. Then they would surrender, just like all the others. On Earth, Admiral Chen stood in a command center buried 3 miles under the Colorado mountains. Hundreds of technicians worked at screens showing everything in the solar system. She watched the alien ships and checked her watch again. Admiral, one of the technicians called. The lunar installations are fully charged. Mars base reports ready. Asteroid belt platforms are armed and locked on target. Good, Chen replied. And the special packages, deployment complete. They are in position. Chen nodded. The special packages were humanity's greatest secret. Objects that looked like space junk but were actually kinetic kill vehicles. Tungsten rods the size of telephone poles, accelerated to 10% of light speed by magnetic launchers hidden in fake mining equipment on the moon. The aliens had shields designed to stop energy weapons, but there was no shield in the universe that could stop simple matter moving that fast. How long until deadline? She asked. 68 hours, 15 minutes. Admiral Chen sat down in her command chair. Then we wait. Let them think they have won. Let them get comfortable. Above Earth, the Zeltharian fleet settled into standard bombardment positions. They had done this countless times before. Threaten the planet, wait for surrender, then occupy and exploit. It was a process that had worked for 3,000 years. They had no idea they were about to meet the first species that had spent their entire history learning how to kill each other more efficiently. The 72-hour deadline was 30 minutes away. In the command center under Colorado, Admiral Chen watched her screens with cold patience. The Zeltharian fleet had moved into what they thought was the perfect attack position. Every ship was exactly where her strategists had hoped they would be. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, the enemy fleet is positioning for lunar bombardment. They want to demonstrate their power by destroying our moon. Chen almost smiled. The moon was where humanity kept its biggest surprise. High above, Earth Ambassador Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship. Through the massive windows he could see the blue and white planet below. Soon it would be another jewel in the Empire's crown. The humans had been silent for the past day. No more threats. No more defiance. They were finally accepting reality. Fleet Commander, Kethvar called to his military leader. Begin the demonstration. Target the moon. Destroy one side of it. Let the humans see what happens to worlds that refuse the Empire. Fleet Commander Zethkol nodded. Yes, Ambassador. All ships. Power plasma cannons. Target the lunar surface. Fire when ready. The Zeltharian ships began to glow as their weapons, charged, energy that could melt mountains built up in their plasma cores. In a few moments, they would turn half the moon into glowing gas. They never got the chance. Admiral Chen looked at her watch. Time, she said quietly. Lunar platforms firing, her weapons officer reported. On the hidden side of the moon, massive magnetic launchers that looked like mining equipment suddenly revealed their true purpose. Tungsten rods the size of small buildings shot out of concealed tubes. The magnetic accelerators pushed them faster and faster until they reached 10% of light speed. The rods were invisible to normal sensors. They gave off no energy signature, no heat, no radiation. They were just pieces of metal moving very, very fast. The first rod hit the Zeltharian flagship exactly where Admiral Chen's computers had calculated. It passed through the energy shields like they did not exist. Shields were designed to stop energy, not matter. The tungsten rod punched through the entire ship from front to back in less than a second. The flagship exploded. Ambassador Kethvar had just enough time to see the explosion before his own ship was hit. The second tungsten rod struck the bridge directly. There was a flash of heat and light, then nothing. Across the Zeltharian fleet, 12 ships died in the first salvo. The tungsten rods hit with the force of nuclear weapons, but they were completely silent. One moment the ships were there. The next moment, they were expanding clouds of metal and gas. What happened? Fleet Commander Zethkol screamed from his command ship. Report. What destroyed those vessels? His science officer's voice was shaking. Unknown, sir. No energy signatures detected. No projectiles on sensors. The ships just exploded. Impossible. Return fire. Destroy that moon. But before the remaining ships could fire, their sensors detected something new. Objects were moving throughout the solar system. Small objects that had been floating like space debris suddenly activated engines and changed course. Admiral, Chen's communications officer called. We have an incoming transmission from the alien fleet. Put it through, Chen replied. Fleet. Commander Zethkol's face appeared on the screen. He looked terrified and angry. Humans, what have you done? How did you destroy our ships? Chen looked at him with no expression. We told you to leave, you did not listen. This is impossible. Your species does not have this technology. You are correct, Chen admitted. We did not have it 75 years ago. But then some of your scout ships crashed on our planet. We found them. We studied them. We learned. Zethkol's eyes went wide. You reverse-engineered our technology? Some of it, Chen replied. But we improved it. Your people build shields to stop energy weapons because that is how civilized species fight. You have forgotten that the universe is full of rocks and metal that move very fast when you push them hard enough. You used kinetic weapons, the alien commander whispered. Tungsten rods accelerated to 10% light speed. Chen confirmed. Simple physics, energy equals mass times velocity squared. We just used very high velocity. On his ship, Zethkol was reading damage reports. 12 ships completely destroyed, 15 more heavily damaged, all from weapons he could not even see coming. This is not how warfare is conducted, he shouted. There are rules, protocols. You cannot simply... We can, Chen interrupted. And we did. Now you have a choice. Leave our solar system immediately, or we will continue firing. Zethkol looked at his tactical displays. His remaining ships were scattered and confused. Half, his weapons were damaged. And somewhere in the darkness around him, invisible death waited to strike again. How many more weapons do you have? He asked. Chen's smile was sharp as a knife. Would you like to find out? The alien commander hesitated. His orders were clear. Conquer the human world. But he was looking at reports of weapons that should not exist. Kinetic projectiles moving at impossible speeds. Stealth systems that made human weapons invisible until impact. We will withdraw to regroup, he decided. But this is not over. The Empire has 1,000 ships. We will return with overwhelming force. We will be waiting, Chen replied calmly. The transmission ended. Around Earth, the Zeltharian fleet began to retreat. They pulled back beyond the orbit of Pluto, out of range of the mysterious human weapons, but they did not leave the solar system entirely. "Sir?" Chen's intelligence officer reported. "Long-range sensors show the alien fleet has stopped at the edge of our system. They are sending faster-than-light messages." "To whom?" "Imperial Command, we assume. They are calling for reinforcements." Chen nodded. She had expected this. The first battle was over, but the war was just beginning. How long before enemy reinforcements arrive? Based on their technology, probably 3 weeks. "Good," Chen replied. "That gives us time to prepare the next surprise." Around her, technicians were already working on new orders. Factories that had been hidden for decades were switching to full production. Materials that had been stockpiled in secret locations were being moved. Weapons that existed only in classified blueprints were finally being built. The aliens thought they had seen humanity's full strength. They were wrong. In deep space, Fleet Commander Zethkol sent his report to Imperial Command. 12 ships lost to unknown weapons. Human technology more advanced than expected. Request immediate reinforcement. With full battle fleet. The response came back quickly. 500 ships were being dispatched. The humans had gotten lucky once, but luck would not save them from the full might of the Empire. What Zethkol did not know was that humans had been intercepting and decoding Imperial communications for 20 years. Admiral Chen read his reports, before Imperial Command did. 500 ships, she told her staff. They are taking us seriously now. "Can we handle 500, Admiral?" her aide asked. Chen looked at the production reports from hidden factories around the world. Thousands of kinetic kill vehicles, hundreds of stealth platforms, and the special projects that even her own staff did not know about. "We will find out," she replied. "Begin Phase 2 preparations and send a message to all defense installations. Tell them the real war is about to begin. In 3 weeks, the Zeltharian Empire would return with overwhelming force. They expected to find a frightened, primitive world, ready to surrender. Instead, they would find that humans had spent 3 weeks turning their entire solar system into a weapons platform. 3 weeks later, the Zeltharian reinforcement fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system. 500 massive ships, each one a fortress of steel and energy. Admiral Vorthak commanded the fleet from his super dreadnought, a ship so large it carried its own fighter squadrons and manufacturing facilities. "So these are the humans," he said, studying the intelligence reports. "A primitive species that destroyed 12 of our vessels through lucky strikes." His second-in-command, Commander Yethril, nodded. "They appear to have reverse-engineered some of our technology, Admiral, but 500 ships against one planet? This should be simple." Admiral Vorthak had conquered 43 worlds in his career. He had seen every form of resistance the galaxy could offer. Brave last stands, desperate attacks, clever ambushes. It made no difference. Imperial firepower always won in the end. "Begin deep scanning operations," he ordered. "I want to know the location of every human weapon before we attack." But as the Imperial scanners swept through the solar system, they found something unexpected. In the 3 weeks since the first battle, the humans had not been idle. The asteroid, belt between Mars and Jupiter, now showed massive energy signatures. What had once been scattered rocks was now a network of connected mining stations. Except they were not mining anything. They were factories, producing weapons at an incredible rate. "Admiral," the science officer reported, "we are detecting industrial activity throughout their solar system. Production facilities on multiple moons. Construction projects in orbit around every major planet." Vorthak studied the sensor readings. "Impossible. No species can build this much in 3 weeks." What the Admiral did not understand was that humans had been building in secret for 50 years. The 3 weeks had just been time to reveal what already existed. Hidden bases that looked like research stations, mining equipment that was actually weapons manufacturing, civilian cargo ships that carried military supplies. In the Colorado Command Center, Admiral Chen watched the alien fleet with satisfaction. "They stopped to scan us," she observed. "Good. That means they are afraid." "Admiral," her intelligence officer reported, "we have broken their communication codes. They are planning a direct assault on Earth in 6 hours. They expect light resistance. Chen nodded. Then let us give them something to remember. Begin Operation Hornet's Nest. Throughout the solar system, thousands of small objects that had looked like space debris suddenly came to life. They were human-built stealth fighters, each one the size of a small car but carrying enough explosive power to damage a capital ship. The fighters had been drifting in space for weeks, powered down and invisible to sensors. Now they activated their engines and began moving toward the Imperial fleet. They traveled in complete silence using cold thrusters that gave off no heat signature. Admiral Vorthak was reviewing his battle plans when his tactical officer suddenly looked up from his console. "Sir, we have a problem. Multiple small contacts approaching the fleet. They appeared from nowhere." "How many contacts?" The officer's hands moved quickly over his controls. 2,000, sir. No, 3,000. The number keeps growing. Vorthak frowned. "Fighter craft? At this distance from their planet? Impossible." "What is their range?" "Unknown, sir. They are not using any propulsion system we recognize." On the sensor screens, thousands of tiny lights moved toward the Imperial fleet like angry insects. They were too small to target with the big guns, too numerous to stop with point defenses. "Launch our fighters," Vorthak ordered. "Intercept them before they reach the fleet." Imperial fighter squadrons poured out of the big ships. They were sleek and fast, armed with plasma cannons and guided missiles. Each one could destroy a small human ship with a single shot. But the human stealth fighters were not trying to fight. They were trying to get close. The first wave of human fighters reached the Imperial formation and simply exploded. They were suicide craft, packed with antimatter bombs stolen from crashed Imperial scouts. The explosions tore through fighter squadrons and damaged the hulls of the bigger ships. "What kind of species builds suicide fighters?" Commander Yethril whispered in horror. Admiral Vorthak was beginning to understand that humans were different from every species the Empire had conquered. Most civilized races tried to minimize casualties. They used tactics that preserved life. They avoided unnecessary risks. Humans seemed to consider death an acceptable tactical option. The second wave of stealth fighters attacked differently. Instead of exploding, they attached themselves to Imperial ships like parasites. Each fighter carried a small boarding team of human soldiers in armor that looked like it came from a nightmare. The soldiers cut through hull plating with tools that should not exist. They boarded Imperial ships and began hunting the crew through the corridors. But these were not normal soldiers. They were humans who had volunteered for missions they knew they would not survive. Imperial crew members found themselves fighting enemies who felt no fear. Humans who kept fighting even when mortally wounded. Soldiers who used their own bodies as weapons when their guns ran out of ammunition. "Admiral," a panicked voice came over the communication system. "This is battle. Cruiser Thorax, we have been boarded. The humans they are not acting like any enemy we have seen. They fight like demons." Vorthak tried to maintain order, but reports were coming in from dozens of ships. Human boarding parties were spreading through his fleet like a plague. Worse, they were not trying to capture the ships. They were sabotaging them from the inside. "All ships emergency withdrawal," he ordered. "Pull back beyond weapons range." But as the Imperial fleet tried to retreat, they discovered that the humans had one more surprise. The asteroid belt that they had been scanning suddenly revealed its true purpose. Hundreds of asteroids began moving, powered by massive engines, hidden inside them. Each asteroid was actually a mobile weapons platform the size of a mountain. They carried magnetic launchers that could shoot tungsten rods across millions of miles. As the Imperial fleet withdrew, the asteroid fortresses opened fire. This time, the tungsten rods were even bigger. Telephone pole-sized projectiles had been replaced by objects the size of subway trains. They moved at 15% of light speed, faster than anything in the Imperial fleet. The rods punched through energy shields, armor plating, and internal bulkheads like they were made of paper. Ships that had survived thousands of battles simply came apart under the assault. Admiral Vorthak watched in horror as his fleet was torn to pieces. In 30 minutes of fighting, he had lost over 100 ships. His remaining vessels were damaged and demoralized. His crew was reporting that the human boarders were still fighting inside ships that were actively exploding around them. "Retreat," he ordered. "Full retreat. All ships, emergency jump to hyperspace." The Imperial fleet scattered and fled. Behind them, the human fighters that were still alive began the long journey home. Many would not make it. Their fuel was running low and their life support systems were failing, but they had accomplished their mission. Admiral Chen received the battle reports in her command center. "Casualties?" she asked quietly. 4,000 fighters lost, her aide reported. 12,000 crew members killed or missing. But the enemy fleet has withdrawn beyond our sensor range. Chen nodded. The losses were heavy, but the victory was complete. The Second Imperial Fleet had been defeated even more decisively than the first. "Admiral," her communications officer called, "we are receiving a transmission from the retreating enemy fleet." "Put it through." Admiral Vorthak appeared on screen. His uniform was torn and there was blood on his face. Behind him, his bridge, was filled with smoke and sparks. "What are you?" he asked quietly. "What kind of species fights like this?" Chen looked at him with something that might have been pity. "We are humans," she replied. "We told your empire to leave. You chose to stay. Now you have learned what that choice costs." "You are monsters," Vorthak whispered. "Your soldiers do not retreat. They do not surrender. They fight until they die." "Yes," Chen agreed. "That is what we do when someone threatens our home." The transmission ended. Admiral Vorthak's fleet continued to retreat, but they did not leave the solar system. They regrouped at a safe distance and sent another message to Imperial Command. This time, the message was different. It was not a request for reinforcements, it was a warning. The humans were not like other species. They did not fight for territory or resources. They fought for survival. And when humans fought for survival, they became something the galaxy had never seen before. They became death itself. The message from Admiral Vorthak reached Imperial Command 3 days after his retreat. Emperor Kalthmore read the report with growing disbelief. 500 ships defeated by primitive humans? Impossible. But the battle recordings told a different story. He watched human fighters explode against Imperial hulls. He saw human soldiers fighting in damaged ships while fires burned around them. He observed tactics that no civilized species would ever consider. "Bring me the intelligence files on this human world," he ordered his advisors. The files painted a picture that made the Emperor's blood run cold. Earth was not a peaceful world like most inhabited planets. It was a world of constant warfare. Humans had been fighting each other for their entire recorded history. They have had over 500 major wars in the last 1,000 years. His intelligence chief reported. They have created weapons specifically designed to kill other humans. Chemical gases, biological plagues, nuclear devices that poison the land for centuries. Emperor Kalthmore studied maps of human conflicts. No other species fights their own kind with this intensity. "It gets worse, Your Majesty. They do not just fight for territory or resources, they fight for ideas, for beliefs, for concepts that have no physical existence. Some of their wars have lasted hundreds of years." The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. Every species the Empire had conquered had been peaceful by nature. They fought only when attacked, and they surrendered when defeat became clear. But humans seemed to consider war their natural state. "What do you recommend?" he asked his military advisors. "Orbital bombardment," General Thekvar replied immediately. "We cannot fight them ship to ship. They are too dangerous. We should destroy their planet from long range." "No," the Emperor said slowly. "That would make them martyrs. Other species might see them as heroes who died fighting the Empire. We need a different approach." What the Emperor decided was the cruelest tactic in the Imperial playbook. If humans wanted to fight, he would give them something to truly fight for. "Target their civilian populations," he ordered. "Not the entire planet, just their major cities. Show them that resistance brings only death to their families." The order went out to Admiral Vorthak. "Select a major human city and destroy it from orbit. Make sure the humans understand that continued resistance would mean the death of everyone." They loved Admiral Vorthak chose New Geneva, Switzerland. It was home to many international organizations. It had a population of 2.3 million people. Most importantly, it had no military value whatsoever. It was a purely civilian target. The bombardment began at dawn, local time. Plasma beams from space turned the city into a lake of molten glass. The attack lasted for exactly 10 minutes. When it was over, New Geneva no longer existed. In her command center, Admiral Chen watched the destruction with an expression of stone. Around her, her staff was silent. Many had friends or family in New Geneva. All of them understood what this meant. "Ma'am," her communications officer said quietly, "we have reports from other major cities. Mass evacuations are beginning. The population is demanding surrender." Chen nodded slowly. This was the moment she had dreaded. When the enemy attacked military targets, humans could fight with clear conscience. But when they attacked families and children, everything changed. "Open a channel to all units," she ordered. Her face appeared on screens throughout the solar system, on hidden bases aboard stealth ships in underground factories, everywhere that humans were preparing for war. "This is Admiral Chen," she began. 37 minutes ago, the Zeltharian Empire murdered 2.3 million civilians in New Geneva, men, women, children, people who had never held a weapon, people who posed no threat to anyone. She paused, letting the words sink in. "The Empire believes this will break our will to fight. They believe we will surrender to save our remaining cities. They are wrong." Around the solar system, human soldiers listened to their commander's words. They had signed up to defend their planet. Now they were being asked to do something more. "The Empire has made a critical error," Chen continued. "They have shown us that they are not interested in conquest. They are interested in extermination. They do not want to rule us. They want to erase us." Her voice became harder, colder. "So we will erase them first." The message that went out that day was unlike anything in military history. Admiral Chen was not asking for volunteers for dangerous missions. She was asking for volunteers for impossible missions. Suicide runs into Imperial territory, infiltration operations with no chance of return, attacks on targets so heavily defended that success would require miracles. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Every human military unit volunteered, but more than that, civilian organizations began volunteering. Scientists who wanted to build better weapons, engineers who wanted to design faster ships, doctors who wanted to help wounded soldiers fight longer. "Ma'am," her aide reported, "we have over 50,000 applications for the Deep Strike mission." The Deep Strike mission was the most dangerous operation Chen had ever conceived. Teams of humans would use captured Imperial technology to travel to enemy worlds, not to conquer them, but to hunt down the leaders who had ordered the massacre. "Begin selection immediately," she ordered. "I want our best people, and I want them ready to launch within the week." What Chen was planning was not warfare as any species understood it. It was systematic assassination on a galactic scale. Human strike teams would hunt down every Imperial governor, every fleet commander, every politician who had supported the attack on New Geneva. The Empire had made humans angry. Now they were about to learn what humans did when they were angry. The first strike team launched 5 days later. 12 humans in a modified Imperial scout ship, armed with weapons that should not exist and carrying orders that were classified beyond any normal security level. Their target was Governor Thexal of the Centauri system, the Imperial official who had suggested targeting human civilians. He lived on a heavily defended world with a personal guard of 500 soldiers. The humans killed him in his own bedroom while he slept. The second team targeted Admiral Kethvar, who had commanded the bombardment of New Geneva. He was aboard, a super dreadnought surrounded by a fleet of escort vessels. The humans infiltrated his ship by pretending to be maintenance workers. They left his body in the ship's command center with a simple message carved into the wall. "New Geneva remembers." Word of the assassinations spread through Imperial space like wildfire. High-ranking officials who had felt safe behind fleets and armies suddenly found themselves looking over their shoulders. The humans were not attacking military targets. They were coming for specific individuals, and they were very, very good at finding them. Emperor Calthmore received reports of 12 successful assassinations in the first month. Imperial governors were afraid to leave their bunkers. Military commanders were requesting additional security. Some officials were even asking to be transferred away from the human conflict. "How are they finding our people?" he demanded from his intelligence chief. "We do not know, Your Majesty. They appear to have detailed information about our command structure, our personal habits, even our sleeping schedules." What the Emperor did not know was that humans had been studying the Empire for decades. Every crashed scout ship had contained computer files about Imperial personnel. Every intercepted communication had revealed names and locations. By the time the war started, human intelligence knew more about Imperial leadership than the Empire did. "This must stop," the Emperor declared. "Send word to all commands. Find these human infiltrators and destroy them." But finding humans in Imperial space was like finding shadows in the dark. They moved through alien worlds like ghosts, striking without warning and disappearing before anyone could react. The humans were not just killing Imperial leaders. They were spreading terror throughout the Empire. Species that had served the Empire for centuries began to wonder if their alien overlords could actually protect them. Some worlds began to quietly contact the humans, asking what would happen if they declared independence from the Empire. The answer was always the same. Join the fight against the Empire and humans will help you stay free. Support the Empire and face the same fate as your masters. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Zeltharian Empire was not expanding. It was contracting, as worlds chose freedom over security and independence over Imperial protection. Admiral Chen watched the intelligence reports with grim satisfaction. The Empire had thought that killing civilians would break human morale. Instead, it had unleashed something the galaxy had never seen, a species that fought not for territory or wealth, but for pure revenge. 6 months after the destruction of New Geneva, Emperor Calthmore made his final decision. The human problem had spiraled out of control. Imperial worlds were declaring independence. His own military commanders were afraid to leave their ships. The carefully built structure of the Empire was crumbling. "Assemble the Grand Fleet," he ordered. "Every ship, every weapon. We end this now." The Grand Fleet was the Empire's ultimate weapon. Over 1,000 ships, including the massive Imperial fortress, a mobile battle station the size of a small moon. It had never been defeated. It had never even been seriously challenged. The fleet began moving toward Earth with one simple mission: destroy everything in the solar system. Leave nothing alive. Make sure that no other species would ever dare to defy the Empire. Admiral Chen received the intelligence reports about the approaching fleet with calm acceptance. Her spies throughout Imperial space had been tracking the massive buildup for weeks. "How long until they arrive?" she asked her staff. 2 weeks, Admiral. Maybe less." Chen nodded. "Begin final preparations. Activate all hidden assets. And send the recall signal to our deep strike teams." For 6 months, human strike teams had been operating throughout Imperial space. Now she was calling them home, not because their mission was over, but because she needed every human soldier for what was coming next. The Battle of Sol would determine not just the fate of Earth, but the future of the entire galaxy. As the Grand Fleet approached, Admiral Chen revealed humanity's greatest secret. For 50 years, humans had not just been preparing to defend Earth. They had been preparing to turn their entire solar system into a weapon. Jupiter's moons had been hollowed out and filled with magnetic launchers. Each moon could fire tungsten rods the size of skyscrapers at 20% of light speed. Saturn's rings were not ice and rock. They were camouflaged missile platforms, thousands of them, each carrying antimatter warheads. The asteroid belt was not just a collection of weapons platforms. It was a single massive machine, with asteroids connected by invisible force fields that could focus their combined firepower on any target in the system. Even Mars had been weaponized. The planet's red color came not from iron oxide, but from the heat signatures of massive underground factories that had been producing weapons for decades. "My God," Chen's second-in-command whispered as the full scope of the defenses became clear. "We turned our entire solar system into a fortress." No, Chen replied quietly. We turned it into a tomb, either for them or for us. The Grand Fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system in perfect formation. Emperor Kalthmor himself commanded from the Imperial Fortress, determined to personally oversee the destruction of the troublesome humans. Begin long-range bombardment, he ordered. Destroy everything. Start with their outer planets and work inward. But as the Imperial ships moved into attack position, they triggered the first of humanity's surprises. What looked like empty space around Pluto suddenly filled with explosions as thousands of hidden mines detonated. The mines had been drifting in the darkness for years, waiting for this moment. Sir, the fleet's science officer reported, we have lost 63 ships to concealed explosives. The entire outer system appears to be mined. Emperor Kalthmor was not concerned. He had expected some resistance. Continue the advance. Clear the mines with probe ships. But the mines were just the beginning. As the Grand Fleet pushed deeper into the solar system, they encountered defense after defense. Stealth fighters attacked from every direction. Automated gun platforms emerged from what looked like space debris. Entire asteroids revealed themselves to be heavily armed battle stations. The humans were not just defending their planet. They were defending every mile of space between the outer system and Earth. Status report, the Emperor demanded, as his ships fought their way past Neptune. We have lost 230 ships, his admiral reported. But we are making progress. The outer defenses are falling back. What the Imperial forces did not realize was that the humans were not trying to stop them. They were trying to trap them. Admiral Chen watched the enemy fleet advance with cold calculation. They are entering the kill zone, she observed. All platforms prepare for synchronized firing. The kill zone was the space between Mars and Jupiter, where the asteroid belt waited. As the Grand Fleet entered this region, they found themselves surrounded by thousands of weapons platforms disguised as ordinary asteroids. Now, Chen said quietly, every asteroid in the belt opened fire at once. Tungsten rods, plasma beams, antimatter, missiles and weapons that had no name, because humans had invented them specifically for this battle. The combined firepower was greater than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Imperial formation dissolved under the assault. Ships that had seemed invincible simply evaporated under focused fire from hundreds of platforms. The Grand Fleet's shields were designed to stop attacks from a few ships, not from an entire solar system. Emperor Kalthmor watched his fleet die around him. In 30 minutes of fighting, he had lost half his ships. The humans were using tactics that no civilized species would consider. They had turned their own star system into a weapon. All ships, retreat to the Imperial Fortress, he ordered. Concentrate our remaining forces. The surviving Imperial ships pulled back to form a defensive formation around their command ship. The fortress itself was undamaged. Its shields were too strong, its armor too thick. Even the devastating human weapons could not penetrate its defenses. Sir, his tactical officer reported, the human platforms have stopped firing. They appear to be regrouping. The Emperor allowed himself a moment of hope. Perhaps the humans had exhausted their ammunition. Perhaps they were finally ready to surrender. He was wrong. Admiral Chen activated the final phase of her plan. Jupiter stations begin charging the mass driver. Jupiter's largest moon, Ganymede, was not a moon anymore. It was a single massive weapon, built over 50 years of secret construction. The magnetic launcher that ran through its core could accelerate objects to 30% of light speed. The object it was preparing to launch was simple, a solid tungsten sphere the size of a city block. Target locked, the weapons officer reported. Imperial Fortress is in optimal position. Chen looked around her command center one last time. Many of these people would not survive what was coming next. The energy release from the Jupiter mass driver would probably destroy half the platforms in the asteroid belt, but it would also end the war. Fire, she ordered. The tungsten sphere shot out of Ganymede's core with the force of a small star. It crossed the distance to the Imperial Fortress in less than a second. When it hit, the explosion was visible from Earth with the naked eye. The Imperial Fortress, the most powerful weapon in galactic history, simply ceased to exist. Emperor Calthamor died without ever understanding what killed him. The remaining Imperial ships surrendered immediately. Without their command structure, without their emperor, without any hope of victory, they simply stopped fighting. Admiral Chen accepted their surrender with no satisfaction. The war was over, but the cost had been enormous. Earth itself was safe, but millions of humans had died in the fighting. The solar system was filled with debris from destroyed ships and platforms. "Ma'am," her communications officer reported, "we are receiving surrender messages from Imperial worlds throughout the galaxy. They are asking for terms." Chen considered the request. The Zeltharian Empire was finished. Their fleet was destroyed. Their leadership dead. Their subject worlds in rebellion. But humans had learned something important during the war. They had learned that they could win. Send a message to all surrendering worlds, she decided. The Terran Federation offers them independence and protection. We will not rule them as the Empire did. We will defend them as allies. The message that went out that day changed the galaxy forever. Humans were not interested in building another empire. They were interested in building something new. A federation of free worlds that chose to work together rather than being forced to serve a single master. Some worlds accepted immediately. Others waited to see if the humans would keep their promises. But word spread quickly that the species that had destroyed the Zeltharian Empire was offering partnership instead of conquest. 6 months later, former Imperial Ambassador Kethvar sat in a human prison cell. He had survived the destruction of the First Fleet and lived to see the end of the Empire. Admiral Chen came to visit him before his transfer to a rehabilitation facility. "I do not understand," he said to her. "You could rule the galaxy now. Your weapons are unmatched. Your military is feared throughout known space. Why do you offer freedom to your enemies?" Chen looked at him with something that might have been pity, because we remember what it was like to be threatened by a superior force. We remember what it felt like when someone came to our world and demanded our surrender. But you won. You have the right of conquest. "No," Chen replied. "We have the responsibility of strength. There is a difference." Kethvar was quiet for a moment. "What will happen to me?" "You will be released," Chen told him. "You will be given a choice. You can return to what remains of Imperial space, or you can stay and help us build something better." "And if I choose to stay?" Chen smiled, for the first time since the war began. "Then you will learn.